Arsenal are still standing, but the cracks are showing, and the next few weeks will tell us everything. Let us be honest with each other for a second. Sunday hurt. If you are an Arsenal fan, you know exactly what kind of hurt it was. Not the sharp, sudden kind. The slow, sinking kind that builds in your chest during the second half and does not fully go away even after you sleep on it. Arsenal went to Wembley. Arsenal had a chance to win the Carabao Cup and keep a quadruple dream alive. And Arsenal came home with nothing but a 2-0 loss and a pile of questions. But here is the thing. This club is still fighting on three fronts. The Premier League title race is alive. The Champions League quarter-finals are coming. The FA Cup is still there. And if you are a proper gooner, you know that the story is far from over. So let us sit down, talk through everything that has happened in the last few days, and think about what it all means for the rest of this season. There is the goalkeeper debate that will not go away. There is a young star whose injury could change everything. And there is a 16-year-old who is making people argue about whether he should go to a World Cup. A lot going on, let us get into it. The Carabao Cup final and the question that has every Arsenal fan divided before anything else, we need to talk about the game itself. Manchester City were better on the day. That is the simple truth. But the conversation after the final has not really been about City being great. It has been about one decision Mikel Arteta made before a single ball was kicked. He chose to start Kepa Arrizabalaga in goal instead of David Raya. Now before you get too deep into that argument, let us remember that this was not a random call. Arteta had been using Kepa in all the cup games throughout the season, and it made sense in a way. You have a goalkeeper who is sharp, confident, and focused on those specific games. You keep things consistent. Pep Guardiola did the same thing with James Trafford. It is a proper football tactic. The problem is that it blew up in the worst possible way. Early in the second half, Kepa had the ball at his feet, and the pressure started coming. He dallied, he hesitated, and City took full advantage. That moment gave them the lead, and honestly it felt like the life went out of Arsenal after that. They never really threatened to come back. What made it even harder to watch was the thought in the back of your mind. David Raya has been one of the best goalkeepers in the Premier League this season. Possibly the best. His ability to play out from the back, his confidence in possession, his shot stopping, he has been excellent, and all of that was sitting on the bench while Arsenal were being pressed high and squeezed from every direction. So the question now is simple. What does Arteta do next? Arsenal back in action on April 4th against Southampton in the FA Cup quarter-final. And the whole football world is watching to see whether Arteta keeps faith with Kepa or goes back to Raya. Jens Lehmann has had his say on this. You know Lehmann, right? The German goalkeeper who was Arsenal's #1 the last time they won the Premier League. The man who got sent off in the Champions League final. That Lehmann. He knows what it means to be a goalkeeper at this club. He knows the pressure, the scrutiny, and the weight of big occasions. And his message was clear. Stick with Kepa. That might surprise you. But Lehmann made a point that actually makes a lot of sense when you think about it properly. He said that Kepa is the one who got Arsenal to the final in the first place. He played well in all those earlier rounds. He made saves. He kept clean sheets. He did his job. One mistake in one big game does not erase all of that. Lehmann also made a practical point about what happens if Raya picks up an injury. If Kepa gets dropped now, if his confidence is destroyed, if he sits on the bench feeling like he has been thrown under the bus, then Arsenal lose the trust of a goalkeeper they need to rely on. You cannot have a #2 who has no confidence in himself and no trust from his manager. Arteta after the game hinted that he was not about to drop Kepa either. He talked about his faith in the keeper, so it sounds like the decision might already be made. But here is a question worth thinking about. Do you agree with that? If you were Arteta, would you keep Kepa for Southampton, or would you put Raya straight back in? The honest answer is that both choices come with risks. And that is what makes managing a football club at this level so brutally difficult. Eberechi Eze is injured, and Arsenal fans should be very worried. Okay, now we get to the injury news, and this one stings in a different way. Eberechi Eze picked up a calf injury in the Champions League second leg against Bayer Leverkusen. He had to come off during that game. He then missed the Carabao Cup final, and now the reports coming out are that he could be facing up to 6 weeks on the sidelines. 6 weeks? Take a moment to think about what that actually means for Arsenal. April is one of the most important months in this entire season. The Gunners have 6 games lined up in April across 3 competitions. FA Cup quarter-final against Southampton, Premier League at home to Bournemouth, a Champions League quarter-final against Sporting CP, and then the enormous Premier League matches against Manchester City at the Etihad on April 19th and Newcastle later in the month. If Eze misses all of those games, that is a massive problem. Mikel Arteta said after the cup final that Eze needs another scan in 6 or 7 days. The full picture will become clear after that, but the early reports are not encouraging. The best case scenario seems to be that he might be available for the Manchester City game. The more realistic hope is that he comes back for the Fulham home game on May 2nd. Why does this matter so much? Because Eze has been one of Arsenal's most exciting players this season. He offers something that very few other players in the squad can give. He gets between the lines, he sees passes that other players do not see. He can carry the ball in tight spaces and make things happen in moments when a game feels stuck. Without him, Arteta had to move Bukayo Saka into the number 10 role during the Carabao Cup final when Arsenal were chasing the game. It did not work particularly well. Kai Havertz started there and struggled to make an impact before Saka was shifted in. Now imagine Arteta having to deal with that problem for 6 weeks. Champions League quarterfinals without Eze. A trip to the Etihad without Eze. You also have to factor in that Eze has already withdrawn from the England squad because of this injury. So there will be no rest for him during the international break either because his focus will be entirely on getting fit. Here is a question for you. Do you think Arsenal have enough depth in attacking midfield to cope without Eze for 6 weeks? Or is this injury the moment where the squad starts to look a little too thin for a genuine title and European push? The next scan results will be crucial. Arsenal fans will be refreshing their phones looking for updates because the answer to that question changes everything about how the rest of the season goes. A 16-year-old is making grown men argue about the World Cup. Now let us talk about something that should feel a little lighter but has somehow turned into a proper debate. Max Dowmann is 16 years old. He plays for Arsenal and right now he is the most talked about teenager in English football. This kid has barely played this season, but every time he has come off the bench, he has made people sit up and pay attention. He made his Arsenal debut this season and became the second youngest player in Premier League history when he did it. He was 15 years and 235 days old. Only Ethan Nwaneri was younger when he debuted in the league. Arteta has been careful with him. He has not thrown him into the starting lineup every week. He has managed his development, protected him, brought him on in games when the moment feels right. And then earlier this month against Everton, Dowmann came off the bench, put in a cross for Arsenal's first goal and then scored the second. At 16 years and 73 days old, he became the youngest goal scorer in Premier League history and the youngest ever for Arsenal. That goal broke the internet. People were making comparisons, the highlight clips went everywhere, and suddenly a conversation started. Should he be in the England squad for the World Cup this summer? Thomas Tuchel, the England manager, was asked about Dowmann, and he did not close the door. He said Dowmann is an outstanding talent. He said the environment at Arsenal is the best possible one for a young player. He said England will always have the chance to call him up for the World Cup. He did not say yes, but he definitely did not say no. Which brings us to Theo Walcott. Walcott is the perfect person to talk about this because he has lived it. He was taken to the 2006 World Cup in Germany as a teenager by Sven-Göran Eriksson. He was 17, he did not play a single minute of football in that tournament, but the experience changed him in ways he did not fully understand at the time. And looking back now, he wishes someone had told him to stay home. Walcott said clearly that he hopes Dowmann does not go to the World Cup this summer. He said it with kindness and with experience behind his words. He talked about how he had to grow up very fast after that World Cup. The media attention, the pressure, the expectation. He said it changed things for him and not always in good ways. He pointed out that Dowmann needs to grow at his own pace, especially on the emotional side, because being a footballer at the top level is not just about technical ability. It is about handling pressure, handling media, handling expectation, handling failure, and all of those things take time to develop. Walcott also made a very grounded point about the current England squad. There are real quality options in wide attacking positions already. Bukayo Saka, Noni Madueke, Jared Bowen, Anthony Gordon, Harvey Barnes. These are players who have been doing it week in, week out at the top level for years. Does a 16-year-old who has made 7 appearances for his club really deserve to go ahead of them? Probably not, and Walcott knows that. But here is the other side of the argument, and it is worth thinking about honestly. Going to a World Cup, even as a squad player, even without playing, gives a young footballer something. An experience of what elite international football looks and feels like. The training sessions, the team environment, the intensity of a major tournament. Some coaches believe that exposure to that kind of environment can accelerate development even if the player never kicks a ball in anger. And some people would argue that at 16, with the talent Dowmann clearly has, keeping him away from that environment is overprotecting him. That the best way to learn is to be around the best. So what do you think? Should Dowmann go if Tuchel calls him up? Or does Walcott have it right? And the best thing for this kid is to stay at Arsenal and keep developing quietly away from the international spotlight. It is a genuinely interesting debate, and it tells you a lot about how seriously people are already taking this boy. What does the rest of this season look like for Arsenal? Let us zoom out for a second and look at the big picture. Arsenal lost the Carabao Cup. That is gone. The quadruple is finished before April even arrived. And that hurts because this squad had real belief that they could do something special this season. But think about what is still available. The Premier League title is still very much in their hands. They are in control of the race. Yes, the City game at the Etihad in April is a massive fixture, But they are in a position where they can still win this league, and that would mean everything to this club and this fan base. The Champions League is still alive. Sporting CP in the quarterfinals is a tie Arsenal will believe they can win. Getting to a Champions League semi-final would be enormous for the club's progress under Arteta. The FA Cup quarter-final against Southampton gives them a clear path towards Wembley again. A chance to go back and finish what they started. So yes, the cup is gone, but Arsenal are still fighting for two of the most prestigious prizes in club football. The Eze injury is the cloud hanging over everything right now. Because when you look at that April schedule and imagine doing it without one of your most creative players, it feels daunting. But Arsenal have depth. They have quality across the squad. Arteta is a smart manager who has shown he can adapt and find solutions. The goalkeeper question will sort itself out one way or another. Either Kepa responds to adversity and produces a strong performance against Southampton that silences the critics, or Raya comes back into the cup and Arsenal do not look back. Either way, Arsenal need their goalkeepers to be ready for what is coming. And Dowmann will continue to develop. Whether he goes to the World Cup or not, this is a player who is clearly going to be at the centre of conversations for the next decade. At 16 years old, he is already making Premier League history. Imagine where he is at 22. The final word here is what it comes down to. Arsenal are at one of those moments in a season that defines everything. The kind of moment that separates clubs that truly believe in themselves from clubs that crumble under pressure. They have been hurt. Sunday hurt. The Eze injury hurts. The noise around the squad and the goalkeeper decisions and the transfer speculation, all of it creates pressure, but the title is still there, Europe is still there, the cup is still there, and this Arsenal squad under Mikel Arteta has shown time and again that they know how to respond. They know how to pick themselves up. They have the players, the belief and the manager to do something really special before this season is over. The next few weeks will tell us who this Arsenal team really are. And honestly, we cannot wait to find out. Stay with it, Gooners. This is not over. Not even close.